You've always been a burden, Mom, a parasite. Her words came with the sharp clink of crystal glasses. Even the sound seemed to judge me. The laughter that followed wasn't just hers. It came from an entire group of well-dressed people pretending not to hear, but secretly enjoying every second. The ballroom was all light and expensive perfume. Guests' cameras flashed, capturing everything. Her gown, the sparkle of her necklace, and my silence. I didn't cry. I just touched the rim of my glass, feeling the chill of the crystal against my burning skin. Helena, my daughter, looked down at me with the same eyes that once begged for my arms. Without me, you wouldn't even have a place to live, she added, toasting with a cruel smile, as if humiliation were a trophy. Inside, something broke. But not in despair, in promise. Because time, I've learned, doesn't erase injustice. It just files it away, waiting for the right day to return it. And in that moment, beneath the lights and the awkward applause, I knew. She may have inherited her father's fortune, but she would never inherit his heart. I looked up, saw the chandelier trembling with laughter's echo, and thought, Arthur, you were right. Truth moves slowly, but it always arrives on time. If stories of mothers reclaiming their dignity move you, stay with me, and subscribe to the channel. Because destiny, oh destiny, may charge a high price, but it always pays in silence. I've been a widow for 8 years now. The clock in the living room still marks the exact time Arthur left, as if time itself had lost the will to move on. Since then, I've learned that silence has a sound, the creak of windows when the wind passes, and the whistle of the kettle boiling for no one. Our old house, tucked away in a quiet Boston suburb, smells of aged wood and memory. Helena was our pride. Law degree, sharp mind, that persuasive smile she'd mastered since childhood. When her father passed, she took charge of everything: companies, accounts, papers. Mom, Dad left everything in order. We just need to sign to formalize it, she'd said once, her voice all professionalism. I signed, not out of naivety, out of love. Arthur trusted her, and I trusted Arthur. At first, she was always around. She'd come by with flowers and reports, quick hugs and long lectures. Now it's time for you to rest, Mom. Let me handle things. I believed her. But care slowly turned into control, and the house started to feel like a guest room. The keys that used to sleep in my nightstand now stayed in her purse. There was a coldness I pretended not to see. She avoided talking about her father, looked away when I mentioned the will. One evening, while serving tea, I asked if there was anything Arthur had left unsettled. Without looking up from her phone, she said, "Nothing you need to understand." Those words echoed for days. I filled the silence with small routines, tending the hydrangeas, sorting my sewing box, listening to the distant voices of neighbors. But the house felt wider, emptier. Sometimes I swore I could smell Arthur's scent, that faint mix of cedar and coffee, and I imagined him there, watching, waiting for me to notice something. One morning, I found an old yellowed envelope on the desk. In the corner, the name of Arthur's lawyer, Pereira and Associates. I recognized his handwriting. My heart tightened. That envelope wasn't supposed to be there. I picked it up and hid it in the deepest drawer. I didn't open it. Not yet. Arthur used to say every secret has its own clock, and mine had just begun to tick. It happened on a spring morning, the kind that smells like new beginnings but hides endings in disguise. The scent of coffee filled the kitchen, sunlight streaming through the lace curtains. Then the phone rang. "Mrs. Albuquerque, this is Leighton Realty. We're confirming key delivery at 3 p.m. Keys? What keys? I asked, confused. The property on Arbor Hill Street. You're on the list to collect your personal items. My heart skipped. The kettle screamed at that exact moment, like an alarm from fate itself. I grabbed my coat and went straight to Helena's office. The building was all glass and steel, filled with people in a rush. The receptionist looked at me with polite pity. "The attorney's in a meeting, but I'll let her know." 20 minutes later, I was finally in. She stood by the window, gazing at the city like she owned it. "You sold the house?" I asked. "I did, Mom. It was inevitable. The market's hot right now. Don't worry, I found you a great apartment. Elevator, view, security. That was your father's home. It was an asset, Mom, and assets move. The way she said asset hurt more than any insult. I looked around for a trace of our life. There was none, just expensive furniture and the chill of indifference. You had no right to do this without telling me. I had every right. The deed's in my name, remember? You signed. I did sign. A document full of small print, small enough to swallow love whole. She touched my arm with false tenderness. Don't cry, Mom. Think of it as a fresh start. And you? What do you think of it as? As growth. Freedom. Her tone was the same one she used with clients. My daughter had become a lawyer even in the way she hurt. When I returned home, my throat was tight. The front door stood open. 2 men were packing my things. Order from Ms. Helena, one said. We have a court authorization. He showed me the papers. Please, at least leave the piano, I begged. Only what's on the list, ma'am. The sound of the lock clicking behind them echoed like mockery. That night, I couldn't sleep. The clock struck 3:15 when something made me get up. I walked to Arthur's room. The old safe was still there, covered in dust. I pressed my ear to it. There was a faint metallic sound inside, like something shifting. The next morning, the phone rang again. A man's voice, calm and steady. Mrs. Lucia, this is Dr. Pereira. We need to talk. It's about your husband's will. The click at the end of the line sounded exactly like a door opening in the dark. In the days that followed, the loudest sound in the house was emptiness itself. Every door that shut echoed like a memory. The silent piano, the dusty windows, the slow ticking clock. It all felt like time was conspiring against me. I tried to keep my routine. Tea at 6, reading at 8, prayers at 9. But the minutes dragged on, and every corner smelled like abandonment. The cruelest part? I still caught myself waiting for the sound of her keys at the door. Helena never called. I sent a short message. We need to talk. Hours later, she replied, Don't complicate things, Mom. I read those words over and over, the cold tone, the distant pronoun. Something inside me finally broke. On the 3rd day, the phone rang again. Dr. Pereira's voice came through. We need to meet. There are documents that change how the will should be read. We scheduled for the next morning. I barely slept. That night, I dreamed of Arthur opening the safe, the same image that haunted me since losing the house. In the dream, he said, When love falls out of balance, iron keeps what lips can't say. I woke up trembling, went to his room, stood before the safe, remembering how he used to say that inside were things time would understand better than people. There was that sound again, a faint metallic rattle, as if something alive was waiting. Later, I went to church. The pews were nearly empty. The priest spoke about trials and justice. After the sermon, he came to me. Mrs. Lucia, there are pains only God explains, but injustices he allows so truth can be revealed. I smiled, not in faith, but in hope. Outside, I ran into Marcos, our old gardener. He held a brown envelope. Mr. Arthur asked me to keep this, he said softly. Told me to give it to you when you ever felt disrespected. The envelope trembled in my hands. Inside was a small rusted key and a note. When love becomes judgment, trust the iron. I went home with the envelope in my pocket. The wind howled through the window cracks. The sound of the lock clicking behind me felt like a prelude. I knelt before the safe and slid the key in. It turned with effort. The metallic groan of it opening thundered through the room. Inside were a cassette tape, a crumpled receipt, and a photograph of Helena as a child, hugging Arthur. On the back, he'd written, "Truth is slow, but always on time." I held the tape carefully. Its label read, "Original Will, Arthur Albuquerque, 2009. Destiny had just given me my voice back. I held that tape from dawn until noon, staring at it like it was breathing. When I finally pressed play, Arthur's voice filled the room. Steady, calm, unmistakable. If you're hearing this, It means my wife needs proof. Proof to remind the world who she is and who our daughter chose to become. The words landed like a sentence. I turned off the recorder and sat at the edge of the bed. The wind slipping through the window sounded like held breath. I knew what I had to do. I went straight to Dr. Pereira's office. Same building, same bitter coffee smell. His secretary, now gray-haired, recognized me at once and led me in. He stood to greet me, eyes tired but alert. "Mrs. Lucia," he said gently, "I kept what your husband asked me to. I hoped we'd never need it." "But we do," I answered. "My daughter sold the house, humiliated me in public, and the will, it isn't the same." He nodded slowly, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small metal box. "Here, these are Arthur's originals. He predicted every step, said that if your silence was ever broken by cruelty, I should deliver this to you." I lifted the lid with trembling hands. Inside were 2 envelopes and a flash drive sealed with red wax. "Arthur sealed it himself," he explained. "There's also a protocol record, number 17B, the same one the registry filed with the official will." "So, there are 2 versions?" I asked. "Yes, one public, one confidential. The public one was tampered with. The confidential one was not." His words hit like a gavel striking wood. He handed me the flash drive. "Before you watch it, understand. This could change everything, even how you see the past." Back home, it was almost midnight when I turned on the computer. The video opened with Arthur, sitting under the soft light of 2 lamps. "Helena," he said, looking straight into the camera, "this is my final wish. If you ever make your mother cry, the entire estate reverts to her name. This clause is irrevocable." My heart stopped. The footage was dated and stamped, September 22nd, 2009. Helena knew. I remembered the crumpled receipt from the safe. It had the same date, the same day as the video. Arthur had left a trail. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. Dates, quotes, names. Beside it, I wrote in bold letters, "Protocol 17B. Time is the attorney of truth." And with each tick of the clock, it felt like destiny was signing with me. I went back to Pereira's office the next morning, carrying the flash drive, the tape, and the crumpled receipt inside a folder. The hallway was quiet except for the ticking of an old clock. As I stepped in, he stood and said, without ceremony, "What was hidden now has a name, Mrs. Lucia. Let's begin." He put on his glasses and spread the documents across the desk. "Here's the will your daughter filed in 2017, and here's the original from 2009. I compared them line by line. The difference jumped out immediately, a missing paragraph. In case of moral abuse against the donor, all assets revert to the donor's name." "She deleted this?" I asked. "Yes." "The signature is real, but the text was mutilated. The registry accepted it because the digital copy matched, but your husband deposited the full version in a sealed vault, Protocol 17B. The sound of that number hung in the air like a hammer strike. "Arthur believed time would reveal people's true intentions," Pereira continued. "He asked me to keep this copy, with the video and receipt, for 10 years. "And now?" I asked, my hands cold. "Now it's time to reopen the case. With your authorization, we'll file a motion to restore the original will. The judge will have to review that clause." I looked at the photo of Arthur on the bookshelf. He even predicted her tone, Doctor. It's as if he knew love could be corrupted. Pereira studied me for a moment. "Your husband didn't predict corruption, Mrs. Lucia. He predicted humanity, and that's why you still have a chance to reclaim the truth." He printed a form and handed it to me. "Sign here. Authorization to proceed." Every detail must stay within the law. The scratch of the pen on paper sounded like an oath. Before I left, I asked, "Will she know?" "Not yet. The filing will be confidential. But be ready. Truth, when it arrives, always makes noise." I went home and, for the first time in a long while, felt direction returning to my life. I brewed a cup of tea, sat at the table, and looked at the envelope marked Protocol 17B. On the tape, Arthur's voice echoed in my memory. "When love turns into a contract, Only justice can decode the feeling. I wrote that line beneath the first in my notebook. The clock struck midnight, each tick whispering the same refrain, 17B, 17B, 17B. Destiny was marking the path. She showed up unannounced. The gate slammed so hard its echo raced down the hallway like a warning. I was stirring my tea when I heard her heels striking the marble. "We need to talk." I figured you'd come," I replied without turning. Helena walked in wearing a beige suit and her favorite jasmine perfume, the one she used when she wanted control. She tossed her purse on the sofa without looking at me. "Mom, what's this about lawyers, wills, recordings? You're letting people manipulate you." "I'm not being manipulated. I just want to understand." She laughed, short, dry. "Understand what? You signed everything. I took care of what was ours. It's not time to dig up the past." "The past dug itself up, Helena, and it brought proof." The crystal glass in her hand cracked between her fingers. "Proof?" "Yes, the original will. Protocol 17B. Her silence lasted a few seconds too long. Then her mask slipped back into place. "That means nothing legally. Old tapes and hearsay. You're exposing yourself." "Maybe, but some truths don't need permission. Only time." She stepped closer, eyes sharp. "Listen to me. If you keep this up, I'll sue you for defamation. I can even claim mental incompetence. You can claim whatever you want, but Arthur trusted me more than any clause. Arthur trusted me when he gave me the inheritance. No, Helena. He trusted you when he believed love would stop you from hurting me." Her jaw tightened. For a brief second, something human flickered in her eyes. Fragile, fleeting. But then came the smirk. "You know what? I'll go live on social media. People deserve to hear my side. Enough of your bitter mother stories." She grabbed her phone. The sound of the notification was like a siren. "You'll see how the public reacts to the real truth. The public changes its mind, Helena. Time doesn't." She pointed the phone at me. "Look into the camera and say you don't want the money. Let's see who believes you." I stood still and let her speak. The live broadcast started, her tone theatrical. "My mother's been deceived by an old, jealous lawyer. But I forgive her." When she finished, she left without looking back. The silence that followed felt sacred. I picked up the phone and called Pereira. "She went live," I said. "Told people you're manipulating me." He exhaled deeply. "Then we know what's coming. Noise. Keep documenting everything. Time will edit this story perfectly." The line clicked off with a sound that felt like a promise. Helena's live stream spread like poison in clear water. Neighbors whispered. Even the girl at the bakery avoided my eyes. For 2 days, the phone rang nonstop. Reporters, curious strangers, distant relatives. I answered none. Each ring struck the same nerve. Humiliation, reborn. On the third morning, I decided to clean the house, to keep my hands busy so my heart wouldn't collapse. I opened Arthur's old sewing box, where he kept small treasures, vintage buttons, a bit of gold thread, a pair of cufflinks that never shined the same after he was gone. At the bottom, something crumpled caught my eye, a yellowed paper folded so many times it seemed to breathe. "Unfold it slowly, Lucia." It was a receipt dated September 22nd, 2009, the same day as the recording, signed by Helena. It read, "I acknowledge full awareness of all clauses of the will of Mr. Arthur Albuquerque, including those regarding property reversion in the event of moral abuse." The paper trembled in my hands. Helena knew, from the very beginning. I grabbed the phone and called Pereira. "You need to see this." When I arrived, he was already standing, vest perfectly pressed, tension in his eyes. I laid the document on the table. He read it silently, then let out a low whistle. "Mrs. Lucia, this is the missing piece. This proves your daughter was fully aware of the clause. Her omission was deliberate." "Is that enough?" I asked. "Enough to turn the case around." He opened a new folder and pulled out a letter. "I was contacted by a man named Douglas Reed. Arthur's former business partner. He says he kept recordings and video copies of the original reading of the will. He wants to hand them over in person. He lives in Maine. The name stirred a memory. Arthur had mentioned Reed at dinner once, always with respect. He can confirm everything? He can. And more. He can prove the digital copy was altered after your husband's death. We left the same day. The road was long, lined with pine trees and cold wind. Reed greeted us in a workshop-turned-office, tall, gray-bearded, weary-eyed. Arthur knew his daughter's love might one day turn vain, he said. He asked me to keep everything safe. He opened a drawer and took out 3 neatly labeled tapes. Recordings from the day the original will was read, dated, signed, and sealed by the notary. We watched them right there. On screen, Helena, younger, composed, listened as Arthur read the final clause. If my daughter ever makes her mother cry, the estate shall return to its source. The camera caught Helena signing the receipt, the very one I now carried in my bag. Reed stopped the tape. He believed in destiny, he said quietly. Used to tell me, truth is slow, but always on time. I looked at Pereira. Arthur said that too. The drive back was silent, the sound of tires on asphalt like a metronome of justice. Crossing back into Boston, Pereira's phone buzzed. He listened, then turned to me. Helena just filed for legal guardianship. She's trying to have you declared mentally unfit. For a second, the world spun. She wants to declare me incompetent? She wants to silence you, but don't worry. Arthur prepared for this too. There's a 2014 psychological report signed by a trusted professional confirming your full lucidity. We'll find her. Outside, the sky darkened over the highway. Destiny wasn't done speaking. When I got home, I placed the receipt inside the safe, beside the tape and Helena's childhood photo. The click of the lock sounded like prayer. Before bed, I wrote in my notebook, Arthur left the proof, time left the stage. Now it's harvest season. The next morning, her name was everywhere. Headlines screamed, Heiress accuses mother of forging late father's will. Her photo, poised, perfectly lit, calculated smile, filled half the screen. Beside it, a candid shot of me, older and weary, captioned, Confused widow may lose right to representation. I watched in silence. The kettle whistled in the background, ignored. Pereira called minutes later. We've seen the article. It's defamation. We'll petition for an immediate forensic review. The receipt and recordings speak louder than any headline. She's killing me through reputation, doctor. And leaving a trail while doing it. We'll turn every step into evidence. For the next week, the phone didn't stop ringing. Reporters, threats, pity calls. The noise became punishment. Then one evening, Marcos, the gardener, showed up at the gate, clutching his hat in both hands. I've seen what they're saying, Mrs. Lucia. If you need me, I'll testify. You're sure, Marcos? I am. I witnessed how she treated you. Mr. Arthur trusted me. Now it's my turn to return that trust. I brought his statement to Pereira, who smiled for the first time in days. He's the human thread we needed. The judge will feel that. But Helena didn't slow down. She filed another motion, trying to suppress the Protocol 17B evidence, claiming that the lawyer had manipulated me. Pereira stayed calm. She's trying to shake what's already solid, but paper is stubborn, Mrs. Lucia. It remembers, even when voices fade. The preliminary hearing was set. The courtroom smelled of varnish and tension. Helena arrived surrounded by reporters. I walked in with nothing but silence. When the judge asked if I wished to speak, I said, I only want the truth to be heard as loudly as the humiliation once was. He nodded. Outside, flashes and shouts. Mrs. Lucia, did you forge the will? I replied softly, I don't forge what time has already signed. In the car, Pereira exhaled. Perfect. Short, dignified, untouchable. Days later, Teresa Valmont, the psychologist Arthur had trusted, returned my call. I have the 2014 report, she said. He asked me to deliver it only if your integrity was ever questioned. She sent a copy. There it was, stamped and signed. Lucia Albuquerque demonstrates full cognitive lucidity and moral discernment above average for her age group. Pereira read it and murmured, "Arthur thought of everything." Still, Helena fought back. Interviews, tears on national TV, claiming she only wanted to save her mother from her own stubbornness. Public opinion split, but slowly, messages began to arrive. "We're with you, Mrs. Lucia. Truth always comes out. Dignity is also an inheritance." The wind seemed to change direction. One afternoon, Marcos returned holding a small flash drive. The garden cameras recorded everything, the night of the party, the insult, everything. "I thought you might need it." The metallic sound of that drive hitting the table was like destiny knocking again. Pereira opened the footage. The video showed it all: the celebration, the toast, her words, and my quiet endurance. "It's all here," he whispered. "Time, words, witnesses." And I realized this was no longer just about inheritance. It was about reclaiming my own memory. That night, I wrote in my notebook, "Truth is slow but punctual. Today, I heard its first heartbeat." I met Teresa Valmont on a gray, chilly morning. Her office sat inside an old townhouse near the park, its walls lined with books and the scent of lavender drifting through the air. She spoke softly but looked straight into your soul. A woman whose calm revealed courage. "Arthur told me a lot about you, Mrs. Lucia," she said. "He worried about a future that now makes perfect sense." "So he thought this could happen?" I asked. "He did. He asked me to record an evaluation of your mental clarity. Said love could one day turn into a dispute." She opened a folder and handed me certified copies of her report from 2014. "Here it is, dated, signed, and filed with the Forensic Council. It proves you were of sound mind in every way." I stared at the pages, something inside me loosening for the first time in months. It felt like Arthur was still holding my hand from the other side of time. Teresa went on, "The judge on this case knows my work. He trusts strong evidence. This will reinforce your truth and dismantle your daughter's theater." "Helena won't accept it," I murmured. "She doesn't have to. The court will." Outside, the wind stirred dry leaves in the garden. The sound of them scraping the pavement felt like a slow waltz. In the following days, Teresa and Pereira worked side by side. She reviewed my statements, trimmed my words. "Keep sentences short," she advised. "Truth breathes better when it's not cluttered." Pereira prepared the final submission. "We'll present the report, the party video, the receipt, Protocol 17B, and Marcos's testimony. It's a flawless construction." Meanwhile, Helena vanished from the media. No posts, no interviews. A suspicious silence. The night before the new hearing, Teresa called me. "Mrs. Lucia, I hate to worry you, but I got a strange call. Unknown number." The voice told me to drop the case. Said it's dangerous to challenge rich families. Was it her? The voice was distorted, but the tone, familiar. We stayed silent for a moment. Then she said, "Desperation is always the last argument of the losing side." The next morning, we met at Pereira's office. He handed me a new document stamped in red. Protocol 17B, restoration confirmed. "The court has acknowledged preliminary authenticity," he said. "Next step, the final ruling." The sound of the stamp hitting paper echoed like a gavel. Before I left, Teresa placed her hand over mine. "Arthur once told me, 'Justice may be mute, but time is fluent.' Can you hear it now, Mrs. Lucia?" I smiled. For the first time, yes. That night I sat on the porch watching the rain. The hydrangeas swayed gently in the breeze. I thought of Helena, of how power numbs the heart. I wrote in my notebook, "Love that turns into possession loses its name. Truth is slow but punctual." Pereira called close to midnight. "Final hearing is set. Tuesday, 9 a.m. The judge wants all parties present. Be ready. She'll fight until the end." "So will time," I said. When I hung up, I heard the metallic click of the front gate, the most reassuring sound in the world. The hearing was set for a cloudy Tuesday morning. The air smelled like rain and nerves. The courtroom was packed, journalists lining the walls, cameras discreetly positioned, the floor echoing with the sharp rhythm of heels on marble. Helena arrived wearing the same beige suit, though her face was paler now. She avoided my eyes. Pereira leaned toward me and whispered, "Today it's not you against her, Mrs. Lucia. It's time against noise." The judge entered, gavel in hand. One solid strike silenced the room. "This court convenes for the case Lucia Albuquerque versus Helena Albuquerque. Proceed." Helena's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, we request that the so-called evidence be dismissed. These are outdated recordings, irregularly obtained, manipulated to mislead." Pereira waited, then rose calmly. "Your Honor, the 2009 document is sealed, authenticated, and corroborated by the receipt signed by the defendant, the witness Douglas Reed, and the psychological report from Dr. Teresa Valmont, confirming full mental capacity of the plaintiff." The judge flipped through the papers. The sound of the pages filled the air. "Proceed with the exhibits," he said. The screen lit up. Arthur appeared on video, reading the will in his steady voice. "If my daughter ever makes her mother cry, everything I've given will return to its source." A ripple of whispers moved through the room. Helena closed her eyes, her jaw tight. "Your Honor," Pereira said, "this is the clause omitted in the 2017 version. And here," he lifted a yellowed paper, "is the receipt signed by the defendant that same day." The judge examined it, then looked straight at her. "Do you confirm this is your signature?" She hesitated. "Yes, but I don't remember." "Selective memory is a dangerous thing, counselor," he replied dryly. Helena took a breath, her voice shaking. "Everything I did was to protect the estate. She doesn't understand how the modern world works. I had to keep her from being taken advantage of." "Taken advantage of by whom?" I asked. She turned toward me, a strained smile. "By men like that lawyer, people who exploit women's pain for attention." Murmurs filled the room. The judge raised a hand. "Order." Pereira remained composed. "If protecting means public humiliation, perhaps love has turned into investment." Helena jumped to her feet, trembling. "I'm done with this farce. Everyone knows she's always been weak, dependent. I built my life from nothing. I owe her nothing." The judge didn't interrupt. Her anger filled the chamber. "If I called her a parasite," she shouted, "it was in a moment of rage. Everyone has one." "But you broadcasted that rage live to thousands," the judge reminded her. "Public defamation is still a crime, even between mother and daughter." Silence. Her breathing was audible. Then, a nervous, broken laugh escaped her lips. The judge struck his gavel sharply. "You're warned. One more outburst and I'll end this session." She sat back down, eyes wet, hands trembling. For the first time, I saw fear. A crack in the armor. Pereira leaned toward the microphone. "Your Honor, to conclude, we request the inclusion of the party footage and voice messages, proving a consistent pattern of emotional abuse." The judge nodded. The video played, the party, the toast, her voice calling me parasite, the laughter around us, and my quiet restraint. Helena lowered her head. The judge closed the folder. "This court will recess for 48 hours to review the evidence. Verdict to be delivered at the next session." One final strike of the gavel echoed through the hall, steady, final, like the heartbeat of justice returning. The night after the hearing stretched endlessly. The wind rattled the windows like it carried a warning, not yet time to rest. I sat in the bedroom armchair, lamp on, notebook open on my lap. I wrote the phrase again, underlined. "Truth is slow, but always on time." It felt like a prayer. At 9, the phone rang. Pereira's voice was calm, but firm. The judge requested full digitization of all Protocol 17B files. That's a good sign. It means he wants every piece of evidence on record. "And Helena?" I asked. Total silence. No statements, no media. That means she's either regrouping or planning something new. That's why we'll move first. Move first? Yes, he said. We're launching the Reinforced Protocol 17B, a chronological dossier connecting each of her actions to the original evidence. No emotion, just facts. Truth, when organized, speaks for itself. I spent the night sorting papers, dates, and notes. By morning, Teresa arrived carrying a folder under her arm, her eyes sharp. I compiled every expert report, transcript, and authenticated video. Helena can lie, but paper can't. Pereira printed the dossier and slid it across the table. Would you like to sign the cover page, Mrs. Lucia? The judge needs to feel this isn't just a case, it's a life. I took the pen and wrote in clear letters, Protocol 17B, Truth Restored. The click of the pen cap echoed like a gavel. The next day, the court clerk stamped the file and sealed it. The thud of that stamp on the cover sounded like fate landing on paper, but destiny still had one more page to turn. That afternoon, Marcos showed up again, breathing hard. Mrs. Lucia, I found something in your husband's old office basement, a small box with his name and a date, 2009. We opened it together. Inside were a handwritten letter and 3 items, a wedding ring, a photo, and a folded note. Arthur's handwriting read, "Those who use love as a weapon inherit only their own emptiness." Marcos's hands shook. Should I testify about this too? Yes, I said. Every voice counts now. I scanned the letter and sent it to both Pereira and Teresa. That night, Teresa called. This changes the tone of the ending. It shows Arthur foresaw not just the betrayal, but its emotional price. His love still defends me, I whispered. On the Sunday before the ruling, it rained nonstop. The sound on the roof was like typing from the heavens, the rhythm of fate. I spent the day rereading my notes, aligning details, feeling the weight lift off page by page. Helena didn't call. No message, no visit. Only silence, the loudest kind there is. Monday morning, Teresa and I walked into the courthouse together. She carried the sealed dossier. Today, she said, time will speak out loud. When we handed everything to the judge, he looked over his glasses at me. Would you like to add anything, Mrs. Lucia? I met his gaze. Only this. When love is used to wound, it leaves a receipt. The gavel struck once, sealing the protocol. That evening, I lit a candle beside Arthur's photo and the small box from the safe. Then I wrote in my notebook, Today, time found its breath again. The next sound will be the verdict. The courthouse felt different that morning, heavier, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Cameras were already in place. Reporters whispered instead of shouting. The air hummed with the quiet tension of something irreversible. The clock above the door struck 9 as the judge entered. One firm blow of the gavel sliced through the silence. The court will now deliver judgment in case number 14-217-2024, Lucia Albuquerque versus Helena Albuquerque. Helena sat beside me, her expression rigid, her hair pulled tight, makeup like armor. Across the aisle, Pereira and Teresa adjusted their papers, calm but alert. I kept my hands folded in my lap, breathing slowly. The judge began, The court has received all additional documents, expert reports, and authenticated footage. Today, we will hear the final statements. Helena stood first. Her voice trembled but tried to sound firm. Your Honor, I admit I may have been harsh, but I never meant to harm my mother. I was misled, convinced that the will needed revisions for legal safety. Pereira rose immediately. Your Honor, the defendant was not misled. She was warned, and the proof is here. He turned on the projector. Arthur's face filled the screen. Calm, clear, immortal. Helena, he said, this clause is irrevocable. If you ever make your mother cry, you lose the inheritance. Love, when it becomes disrespect, nullifies its own merit. The room went still. The judge's pen froze above the page. And this receipt? He asked. Pereira held up the yellowed paper. Signed by the defendant, on the same day as the video. Do you confirm your signature, Ms. Helena? She hesitated. Yes. Then you acknowledge you knew about the clause of reversion. I did, but... She swallowed. I just wanted to protect our assets. By humiliating your mother in public? The judge's question cut the air like glass. Helena said nothing. Teresa stood next, holding her report. Your Honor, the plaintiff was declared fully competent in 2014. The assessment is recorded with the Forensic Council. There is no basis for mental incapacity. What we have here is emotional abuse, documented in video, audio, and writing. The judge nodded. Continue. Pereira opened the last folder. Your Honor, this is Arthur Albuquerque's handwritten letter, dated 2009. It reads, "Those who use love as a weapon inherit only their own emptiness." The judge read the note himself, quietly. Then, almost to himself, he murmured, "Truth is slow, but always on time." Helena lowered her head. For the first time, her shoulders sagged. Pereira pressed on. We request full recognition of the original clause under Protocol 17B, Truth Restored. The judge's voice grew firm as he read aloud. In the event of moral abuse against the donor, all assets shall automatically revert to the donor's name, without need for further litigation. The scrape of his pen on paper was solemn, final. Helena stood abruptly. This is unfair. I was young. I didn't know what I was signing. Pereira replied evenly. You were 29, an attorney, and the one who filed the altered version. You knew. I just wanted freedom. And you turned freedom into arrogance. Enough, said the judge, his gavel striking once. His tone was no longer procedural. It was verdict. Throughout this case, the court has observed two undeniable facts: public humiliation and deliberate manipulation of legal documents. Both violate the principle of good faith required in family and legal relations. Helena trembled. A single tear broke through her mask. For a fleeting second, I saw the little girl who once slept between us, while Arthur told bedtime stories. This decision, the judge continued, is not revenge, it is justice. Silence spread, vast and deep. The court hereby validates the original clause. All assets are to be returned to the plaintiff, Mrs. Lucia Albuquerque. The court recognizes moral abuse by the defendant and imposes penalty for bad faith litigation. The will shall stand in its authentic form. So ordered. The gavel fell, once, twice, 3 times. Helena collapsed into her chair, face hidden in her hands. Not a single reporter dared to flash a camera. Pereira stood tall. Teresa squeezed my hand. I didn't cry. My whole body was silence, the kind that heals. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Lucia, would you like to say anything? Only this, I said. My husband's love still pleads my case. He nodded. Then may your name be restored along with your estate. As people filed out, the sound of footsteps mixed with the soft creak of the old door. Outside, the morning sky was clearing. Helena remained seated. I turned to her, not in anger, but recognition. Daughter, I said softly, the money comes back to me, but love, if you want it, can still come back to you. She didn't answer, just looked up, dazed as if waking from a long dream. Pereira gathered the files and slipped the flash drive into his case. It's done, he said. It is, I replied. Outside, the press surrounded me. Mrs. Lucia, do you feel vindicated? Someone shouted. No, I said steady. I feel heard. The morning breeze was cold and clean. The trees rustled softly, applause from time itself. Inside my purse rested the receipt, the photo, and Arthur's letter. Proof that real love always leaves traces that even lies can't erase. The days after the verdict carried a new kind of silence, not the hollow one of grief, but the soft hush that comes when justice finally sits beside you. The phone stopped ringing, neighbors started greeting me again. The world felt reorganized, like a house that exhales after being closed too long. Pereira came by one afternoon. The decision is final, he said with a quiet smile. No more appeals. Everything's officially back in your name. I nodded. He handed me a blue folder. My advice? Create a foundation. Use part of the inheritance to fund legal education for older women. Arthur would have loved that idea. I smiled. He used to say knowledge is the safest inheritance. The following weeks, I rearranged the house, each room humming its own small song, the creak of the floorboards, the whistle of the kettle, the soft thud of windows catching the breeze. They were no longer echoes of loneliness. They were notes of peace. In the garden, the hydrangeas bloomed again, bluer than ever, as if they'd been waiting. Teresa visited with flowers and a letter from the judge. "You've given dignity back to a system that sometimes forgets the weight of affection," it read. I placed it on the table beside three things only: Arthur's ring, his photo, and his final letter. Everything else was noise. Helena never returned. I heard she sold her firm and left town, traveling without direction. I felt no anger, just a tired compassion. When fate collects its debts, it doesn't shout. It whispers through reflection. At my last meeting with Pereira, he asked, "What will you do now, Mrs. Lucia?" "Manage what remains with grace," I said. "Start the foundation. And teach other women to read every clause, even the invisible ones written in the heart." He smiled. "You've won with elegance." That evening, I closed the gate and paused for a moment. The metallic click of the lock, the same as the safe, the same as the gavel, echoed softly. Endings and beginnings sharing the same sound. Before sleeping, I wrote the final line in my notebook. "Justice doesn't give back time, but it gives back your name." And a woman's name, that's the only legacy she truly needs. 6 months have passed since the verdict. Autumn has painted the trees gold, and the house breathes again. Some mornings I still wake before sunrise, light a candle, and let the silence fill the room. Time, at last, speaks in my favor. The foundation is alive now, memory and justice, just as Arthur wanted. Women of all ages arrive with papers, doubts, and untold stories. I greet them with hot coffee and open ears, the kind of comfort money can't buy. Sometimes I see myself in them, trembling hands, tired eyes, voices fighting to be taken seriously. Helena never returned. I don't miss her presence, only the peace I once hoped we'd share. Maybe she's still searching for her own truth, and time, as patient as it was with me, will guide her too. On my desk, only 3 objects remain: the wedding ring, the photograph, and the letter. They're the pillars of everything that endured. The wind pushes gently through the window, and the curtains dance. The same wind that once carried shame now brings serenity. Arthur used to say, "Love is the only inheritance that can't be rewritten by any will." Now I finally understand. When I look in the mirror, I see a whole woman, not victorious, just whole. Pain has lost its shape and become memory. And when memory holds dignity, it turns into legacy. If you, listening to this now, have ever been silenced, underestimated, or hurt, remember this: time is the best attorney for truth, and silence, when born from dignity, is the first sound of victory. Subscribe for more stories that restore respect, courage, and hope. Because sometimes justice walks slowly, but it always arrives.